Welcome to Inflection Point Podcast, where we cultivate change from the inside out as we ponder the Cairo question. Will Cairo have to protest in his lifetime for the birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which he was born? We stand on the belief that dismantling racism goes beyond laws and legislation or politics and economics. Here, anti-racism activation is presented as an inside job where personal transformation and accountability impact social change. So take a seat at the anti-racism activation table with Inflection Point Podcast.
So thank you all for tuning in to the latest episode of Inflection Point Podcast, where we are dedicated to anti-racism activation and the art of listening and authentic conversation, engagement, and action. I am your host, Anita Russell, and here's a quick hello from co-hosts Gail Hunter and Mavis Bauman.
Go ahead, Gail. You're first tonight.
I know, you switched it up. Hi, I'm Gail Hunter, and it's nice to be here and wonderful for you to join us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mavis Bauman. Thanks for listening in.
Absolutely. So our theme for 2025 is community engagement and the grassroots of change. So throughout the year, we explore those stories and those strategies and those successes of community-driven movements that are making a difference. So our episodes focus on both theory and practice, allowing our audience to gain insights that they can apply in real-world community engagement efforts. So in this episode, we explore community engagement. Let me say this correctly. We explore how community engagement aligns with cooperative economics, once again through the lens of the Ujamaa Collective, a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded with a social mission to act as a catalyst to advance Africana women by providing a fair trade marketplace for cultural, artistic, and entrepreneurial exchange through cooperative economics in the historic Hill District neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Ujamaa Collective stands on these 5 principles: fair trade, meaningful work, community, creativity, and wellness. And today we are very blessed to have Alana Griffin, who is one of the ambassadors of the Ujamaa Collective. This woman is amazing. That's all I can say. And I'm going to prove it to you by reading her bio, right? Alana Griffin is a proud ambassador with Ujamaa Collective, where she lives out the organization's mission to empower Africana women through cooperative economics, cultural expression, and community healing. And as a community-rooted entrepreneur, author, and creative visionary, she leads with intention in the realms of wellness, advocacy, and arts-based engagement. Alana is the founder of Affirm I Am, a wellness apparel brand that affirms identity and healing. She serves as the program designer and facilitator of place-based healing affinity circles. I definitely want to hear more about that. She is also a certified herbalist and a trauma-informed yoga practitioner in training, with a passion for creating spaces where women reclaim voice, rest, and power. In addition to designing and leading healing retreats, Alana serves as a Pennsylvania hub leader for Moms Rising and chair of the Parent Advisory Council of the East Liberty Family Support Center. And all she does, she embodies Ujamaa's principles of fair trade, meaningful work, wellness, creativity, and community. So Alana, welcome to our show. We're so glad to have you. And if we can get the conversation started, now I read your official bio, so now we want to hear you share your personal story.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. And I'll kind of go into how I got to Ujamaa. Initially, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I have been gone for about 12 years. My job had taken me to St. Louis. I lived in St. Louis. My oldest son was born in Tampa, Florida. I got married in Tampa, Florida, and most recently I was in San Francisco, California. And I never thought I would return to Pittsburgh, to be honest with you. I left for many reasons, and I never thought I would return, but after divorce, I needed support. I needed my family. So I returned back to Pittsburgh, and I've been back for maybe 6 years. Not only did I need support from my family, I needed support for my children. I needed them to have peers their age. I needed a community of parents their age and to do parent-child activities together. I also needed community for myself, and I was craving sisterhood. And through, you mentioned East Liberty Family Center, where I am the chair. I'm the chair of the Parent Advisory Council for the last 5 years. Someone had mentioned Ujamaa. So I looked into Ujamaa and I'm like, this is a really awesome, dope organization, right? And at that time, the membership wasn't open. So membership wasn't open. And I waited for some time. And once the membership opened, I jumped on it. I jumped on and being a part of Ujamaa. Like I said, I was seeking sisterhood. And that's where I found it. I found the sisterhood in Ujamaa. And through the years of being a member of Ujamaa, they opened up a new membership, which is the ambassador. So ambassador is not just the title, ambassador is those who are living it, those who are very active members, those who kind of embody the mission of Ujamaa, and also for those who've been a member for some time. So you do have to be a member for some time. And that's what brought me to Ujamaa, was really through me needing sisterhood. And I found something very sacred. To me, Ujamaa is very sacred. And as an ambassador, I really support the overall mission. I help with the members and anything that they would need through maybe mentorship, as well as if they need help with content, really being the face of Ujamaa as well. Serving communities, each ambassador right now, there's about 5 of us. Each ambassador, really, we hone in on what our skill set is. Some of my background is in marketing. So, that is my role, really to embody the vision and not just in words with Ujamaa, but also in action. So that's what brought me to Ujamaa. I'm very happy to be here representing them as the ambassador.
Excellent, excellent. When I hear your story, when I listen to Frankie, when I listen to Lakeisha, and for the audience, these are just other people that are part of the Ujamaa Collective. There's so many threads that are similar to our stories and how we all came from these different parallel spaces and all of that. And here we are now in this incredible space called Ujamaa Collective. So I want to just kind of jump a little bit deeper into our conversation and just kind of explore this question. And this is part of the conversation that we had when we had Lakeisha on the last episode, this whole idea of how community engagement aligns with cooperative economics. So I'm just going to read very, very briefly what those two definitions are. And then I'd like to really take those two definitions and think about reimagining the power of we through community engagement and cooperative economics. So here's the definition of community engagement: the intentional process of involving people in collective action to address local issues, shape decisions, and build power through participation, dialogue, and trust. It centers on equity, shared leadership, and long-term capacity building. Cooperative economics is an economic model that emphasizes democratic ownership, shared resources, and mutual benefit. It's rooted in traditions such as Black cooperatives and movements and solidarity economies. It redirects capital and labor away from an extraction process and toward regeneration and reciprocity. So when you hear, Alana, the phrase, those two components, but then when you combine that in this idea of reimagining the power of we, what does all of that say to you?
It says that, it's nothing new, right? So cooperative economics is nothing new. It's something that our ancestors did, right? And I believe that Ujamaa is just following the steps of that, us partnering together, us having the skill sets, us as, prior to, and I'll talk about our ancestors, where our land wasn't just individually owned, Our land was amongst all of us, and we shared the resources. So, Ujamaa is, I would say, is not transactional. It's transformational. And the relationships that we're building, is really not about just selling products, that we're investing in each other and we're really out there doing the work. And I really believe that's how you're going to shift from participation to power and really do the small steps, whether it's the small steps, because in totality, when we look at the larger pictures, that's represented and made up of smaller steps. It's community engagement through the people, through trusting the people. Ujamaa is living that every day, whether it's through our artisans' voices, and we center around healing, whether it's co-creating opportunities, that meet some of our members' needs. It's really setting up the framework. And, Ujamaa has really been setting up that framework for a very long time, where we can really understand as a collective what cooperative economics means and really keep pushing that movement forward.
Absolutely. And so when you think about that, what we're actually doing is building systems that serve everyone and not just a few people. So Mavis, Gail, your thoughts on this idea of reimagining the power of we?
Wow. I am so impressed with what all has been going on. And you're doing this not just with Ujamaa, you're doing this in a few other organizations too. But it's the premise of the we, right? It's not based in any narcissism. It's not based in just self. It's really about wanting to give and be generous, and that's the cooperation, right? That which is not seen a lot in business and the rest of the companies in this United States. And it's sad. I mean, it saddens me almost that you have really zeroed in on exactly what is most important, and you're doing it. You're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
When I was preparing for this, Elena, I was thinking, what does an ambassador do? Like physically or economically or whatever. But then when you said you get to bring your marketing skills to the table. So in a way, is it like filling out the sort of the whole circle of skills that are needed to run a business? In other words, we got a healer, we got somebody who needs healing. We've got all those different components. Is that, or do you reach out more to people who are not part of Ujamaa in your ambassador role? Both?
That's a really good question, because that's part of my role. So like you said, each ambassador, we're really honing in on their skill set. We all have different strengths, and we want to really emphasize our strengths. So some of my strength is outreach as well as marketing. So really, that is one thing, bringing more awareness to Ujamaa. Ujamaa has been around a very long time, but that does not mean that everyone is familiar with Ujamaa. So bringing them into spaces and places that may not have heard of them, and beginning to partner with different organizations and business as well. But a bigger part of it is really honing in for our members. We have members that have been with Ujamaa long time, for 11 plus years, and we have new members. Is really partnering with them, helping them that their voice is heard in whatever capacity that needs to be, as well as bringing them into this creative space, making them feel welcome. And that's also part of my role is with the members, helping them to feel welcome, helping them to understand everything that Ujamaa does. And if there's something that they need to either take their business to the next level or a skill set, that is something that we want them to know that it's possible. And even hearing their voice, that what they may need. There's a couple of things that we're doing that our members have mentioned that they need, and we're now making space for that. So it's all encompassing and welcoming for all of them. So that's part of my role. And there are other ambassadors who hone into their strengths in different areas. But really, the main thing is for me is making sure Ujamaa is heard amongst the community, as well as honing in and bringing that sisterhood closer to our members, because it's a sisterhood. It really is. And we definitely try to embody it in every way and every day.
Yeah. I can't help but contrast it to getting a job in corporate America. It's that's all about competition. It's all about highlighting failure. It's about highlighting time that you weren't working on your resume. Oh my gosh, who are you that you had this blank time? This is really about gleaning the best of people and bringing them together to bless others. I'm hooked on it.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a fabulous, and it's pretty new to me. The concept is pretty new to me as a white person.
Right.
Well, so what you're saying, Mavis, is actually a really good segue into this idea, right, of economic empowerment through collective action. And that collective action means that each one of us, as individuals, I'm a member. Elena is an ambassador, and then we have people like Lakeisha, executive director. But all of us, when we come together, the beauty is we get to bring the fullness of who we are. And so when we're able to do that, we learn from one another. We also give to one another. So I want to read this statement here. I want you all to react to it. Community engagement is the relational soil in which cooperative economics can take root and flourish. So when you hear that statement, what does that say to you?
For me, it's that what I said before is really taking other skills and then honing in on it and really living and elevating, like you said, either it's the artisan voice, either, centering around through healing. And that's something that I also do, co-creating opportunities that meets their needs, building with people, not just for people, but building among people. We're laying the groundwork. We're laying the groundwork and we're cultivating it and we're watering and we're pouring. If you think of it like a garden, really laying that groundwork. And there's many people that are tilling the soil. There's many people that come in and, with their skill set, and they're able to pick the weeds. But together, we're growing something significant and special. And all different members play a part in that. And that's what I think about when you said that, especially when you mentioned the soil, is we have this garden and many people participate in, and many of our members do, but together we're building something huge. And then all of us can live off of it. All of us can take what we need, whether you want kale, whether you want tomatoes, all collectively building and nourishing ourselves as a people.
Yeah, I want to comment that, I hear the words wellness and healing a lot, right? And so obviously in my field of work, I hear that. I certainly live that. But you're describing that in almost every interaction and every purpose or every intention, it is actually creating that whatever variation or level of healing and potential of wellness for all. Do you experience that and all that you are participating in? Because it sounds like that would be pretty prevalent from how you're describing it.
Yeah, it's very intentional. It's very intentional. The work that we do, the touch points is very intentional. So I will say that coming in, and I said in the beginning, I need a sisterhood. So coming in and being able to be my true self, right? And being able to take the mask off in corporate America and other parts of our lives, we're wearing a mask. Don't do too much of this. Don't do too much of that. And, thankfully, I'm out of corporate America, but I was in it for many years, many years. So at Ujamaa, there's no mask. I come in and the environment and the ambiance and this being around like-minded sisters and being around those who also share your enthusiasm, it helped me to be more creative in areas and ways that I really thought I wasn't. But that spirit and building off of each other, really with that intentionality, it's really helped me to grow. And then the level of accountability as well. I talked about autonomy and being ourselves, but there's a level of accountability. As us to grow, as us to evolve, we need someone to, hey, let me guide you. Someone who's maybe been there, someone who's been the entrepreneur, who's been in spaces and places where I want to be, really putting you aside and say, hey, sis, let me help you with this book. Let me share this. And it really is, Gail, it really is that intentional. And it's natural, though. It's just natural. Coming together, us being in spaces together and building off of our energies, really has helped a lot of us. So, I would say, yes, it's just a flow. It's something sacred and something very special.
Very much so. And it's like this authentic generosity that is just, coming from everyone in their basic core belief systems, that it's just natural. It's just, it's beautiful.
And think of all the energy that you've redirected into something that is so connecting, loving, and productive, as opposed to having to hide your authentic self.
Right. You don't have to hide.
You can redirect that authenticity into true healing for others, advancement for yourself. Like you say, you learned to be creative about things you had no idea. Isn't that fun? It's so fun.
I'll say, I'm creative in different ways. I'm a writer, I have a clothing line with certain areas. I'm like, not that creative. But when we had we followed a maker session and we were together, it was like, I was really into it, and it's therapeutic. So when we talk about mindfulness, a lot of our work with our hands, with our mind, being around people who we can really be in a sacred space and be yourself, is therapeutic. It really is.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Excellent, excellent. So here's another thought I want you to consider. When communities come together, not only to voice concerns, but to own solutions, they transition from being subjects of charity to architects of transformation. So when you hear that, how do you respond to that? And this is for all three of you, as we continue this conversation.
I don't know, when you go first.
It is all about that. I mean, it is. You are doing that. I mean, and it's just incredible. And my thoughts go to, okay, so how can that transfer to many other areas of life and other people? And I mean, it's just it is what I think the goal is. It's and for our purpose of being here, unlike what many have been choosing to have as a purpose of being here. Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a trait of humans to have a point where they become selfish and, want to do land grabs or whatever it is. But if more people got to experience the kind of transition, both you and Anita, even, I'm thinking that's correct, to see what can be done when we're not squabbling that way, when we really are about, do you need this more than I do? Let's do it. And then as I've said a few times, nobody goes without. What kind of that is a great solution. I'm loving that.
Yes.
Yeah. Right now we're in a moment of, deep disconnection, right? So right now, our economy, broken systems, rising isolation.
Yeah.
But, I would say these our solutions are new. They're ancestral. So, they're things that are within us. So we just really have to bring a lot of those out and really live those. And they're cooperative, the things that we need our community, we need each other to really get through all of that. So, the root is shared, I think, believe, and they share the roots with us in the purpose. And when we engage in ownership, collective ownership, I think a different type of mindset is created. Yes. And we're able to begin to take back some of the systems and some of the things that were taken away from us. So yeah, that's really, when you said that, Anita, that's really what I thought of. The systems were designed to disconnect us. And when we begin to own that and understand that and become together as a collective and then live that and breathe that and teach it to our children. And, we had conversations of village, and we at Ujamaa, we really own that and live that, You're going to have a lot of aunties, and growing up, I had a lot of aunties. I had a lot of aunties and uncles, whether it was my neighbor, but really that village. And, the bartering is what mine is yours, and to some point, what I have, you need, and what you have, if I need, I'm able to. And when we begin to take steps into that, it really is beauty. So it's no longer, it's not charity. It's just, this is who we are and this is how we live. So really taking that on as a community and for other organizations, for others to really take that on, I believe we'll begin to see some shifts.
And I think one of the other things that I love about us together as this Ujamaa Collective is that our children are actually involved. Like if we have a meeting or a program and my grandson Cairo is here, Cairo goes to Ujamaa with me. So he knows Miss Frankie, he knows Miss Sheba. And the same thing, I met Lakeisha's son the other day. And so I think that's a part of that whole community engagement and bringing it together, that it's really bringing us together in the totality almost of our families. My husband is always at Ujamaa with me. And so it's this sort of family thing that comes together. What do you think about that, Alana?
Definitely, because my boys are there. Whether I have a babysitter or not, my boys will come when I need them to come. And really, like we were talking about the village, and having those circles and then building upon those circles where our children are able to see, hey, mommy has an extension. This is an extension of you. Yes, it is. Oh, and mommy goes to this. She's creative. She's able to do this. And also helping to generate income, right? So yes, it's beautiful for our kids to see that we are not an island. We were not created to be in isolation. We don't heal in isolation. We heal as a community. We need that. So yes, the boys see it. I have two boys, they're ages 10 and 12. And they're able to share that. And also their imagination and creativity is brewing, like you probably with Cairo, is brewing that they see us come into these maker circuits and they're sitting back and they come in the boutique and they say, wow, then they see my t-shirts and they're like, yeah, like really, and that pride as well. And this is going to be replicated. It's going to be replicated. You have those same creative juices within you. We just have to really hone them. And so I love that our children are a part and they're able to grow up in the circle of Ujamaa.
Excellent.
That will be normal for them. That will be normal for them.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to just quickly summarize what we've talked about thus far because we need to get ready to shift, take a break. And so what we're talking about is this idea of community engagement and building relational infrastructure. So if you take everything that we're talking about and summarize it, boil it down, that's what it boils down to, that we are building relational infrastructure. And then when it comes to the cooperative economics portion of it, we are also building this mindset of ownership as liberation, right? And then finally, the power of alignment, that engagement needs cooperation and cooperation needs engagement. And so it's a recipe, if you will. And if you take one of those ingredients out, that cake's not going to taste the same. It's going to be something different about what we produce. But because we sort of operate within those spheres, this is what makes Ujamaa so successful. So we're going to take a break and then we're going to come back and we're going to continue the conversation with Alana Griffin.
Okay, thanks so much.
Welcome back to Inflection Point Podcast as we continue our 2025 journey into community engagement and the grassroots of change. In this episode, we are exploring personal empowerment and cooperative economics in the historic Hill District neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and beyond. Our guest is Alana Griffin, ambassador of Ujamaa Collective. So I'd like to kind of shift the conversation just a little bit. And let's think about how or why does all of this alignment and everything that we've been talking about, like in the before we went to break, we ended with this idea of the power of alignment, and that's engagement needs cooperation and cooperation needs engagement. So in you all's minds, why do you think this is so important right now?
Mm-hmm.
The space that we're in, right? The space that we're in and a level of division that is taking place, whether it's classes and whether it's a lot going on. So to really kind of bring that back and center us and ground us in, this is what we know works. this is what we know brings on healing. And, to really speak on that and to act on that is just one small part of why it's important, especially now and today. There's a lot of division happening, a lot of trauma that's taking place, whether it's economic trauma as well, to really bring us back to what we know works. And like we were talking, during the break, ancestrally, this is what we know within us. This is how we know that, our ancestors knew what to do. They knew that, building and the power of connection and how powerful and how that worked. So.
Excellent. Excellent. So some of the things that I have listed here in terms of why this alignment matters now. So for example, it resists economic disempowerment, where ownership combats a state of existence in which material provision and psychological wellness are adversely affected by a lack of regular or secure income, or people engaging with one another and all of that. And so when I think about everything that Alana just said, it's kind of also linking to this idea of resisting economic disempowerment.
Mm-hmm. Mm. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's totally supporting, empowerment. I mean, it's at an individual level, because it's a collective, right? You're not alone in that experience. Mm-hmm. And that knowing that you're not alone creates that feeling of safety. And that can open up within oneself just the ability to be creative, as you said, and to just begin to explore the possibilities and develop them, because you've got that support there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then we can also think of it in terms of healing civic distrust, which is, again, something that Alana alluded to. Right. Engagement fosters relational repair.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So your thoughts on that, Mavis?
Well, I'm thinking about how in this world of Ujamaa, these rules can be formed anew, instead of trying to go out to a system and change them. For example, if you tried to change a philosophy within a corporation that was already in the, basically white supremacy format, it would be really difficult. But, to kind of establish this as a separate organization, a separate effort, is not to the exclusion of anybody either. It's just, we know what can work. We have this sense from our ancestors. It's worked in the past. Watch us, and that is going to have an impact. That's what I'm thinking, because people will see how well it works, and people will be healed instead of, angry and disenfranchised. And so I would love it to just spread like a quiet, we talk about the grassroots thing all the time, right? But just to spread quietly and lovingly and heal people as it goes. Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming in Technicolor there, Alana?
No, I love that, Mavis, because healing today means returning to those roots, right?
That's right.
Not to survive, but to thrive, through rest, through, ritual, through reclaiming our economic and cultural power. And Ujamaa does that today. We do that today by, letting the members shape some of the direction of the organization, whether that is our vendors and supporting our vendors, to wellness offerings, not just for participants, but, like, we're not just members, we're kind of architects in Ujamaa, because we have a voice, and together we're reclaiming and, taking that cultural power back. So you're right on. Like, a lot of it, grassroots, it's power sharing. When you come together as a collective and know that I'm not just paying dues, I am actually a part. I am co-writing this and helping push our vision to the future. It makes you feel different, but there's other spaces and places that you're not that, right? you just pay your membership dues. There's other spaces and places where you don't get that. That's why I said, Ujamaa is so sacred, and we talk about healing and safe spaces, and then with our conversation, to know you come into a place and you can take that mask off and you can drop your load there among your sisters, and really that support, because through life and through motherhood and through entrepreneurship and all the things that we as women do, we do a lot. We wear a lot of hats. We can be tired, but do you have a safe space where you could just vent? Do you have a safe space where you could say, what happened today at work? Just to have that. So it's so many levels of Ujamaa with our entrepreneurship, with really understanding the systemic, racism, with the sisterhood, with empowerment, with just a lot. So yeah, you hit it right on the head, Mavis. That we really need to do that together.
Yes.
Are men involved in this particular group?
Not particularly, no. Now we have our spouses and we have our partners.
Yeah.
But this is for women. This is a women-led organization.
Interesting.
It is the year of the feminine, so that fits perfectly, right? Yeah.
We need it. We need a little bit of little press. Let's go.
We need it because we're doing everything.
Exactly.
Well, it's remembering that innate that I believe is within us, which is that desire for connection, as I said, and that desire to feel safe and to know that you're not alone here and you don't have to be alone. And it's not a competition. All the things that you've been saying, all of you.
Not a competition.
Yeah.
That's huge, really building and hearing each other and supporting one another, like the level of support, being, Anita does so many great things, and be able to be her cheerleader, because we're sisters. We're not in this as competitive. You shine, great. I'm here for you, and you shine. And when I shine, she's here for me, and I shine. I mean, that is healing. That's healing in itself.
Excellent. So this conversation is so amazing. So I want to throw another statement out there. So this statement is about building bridges to a new economic reality by investing in local leadership, co-op incubators, public policies that support shared ownership, and storytelling that lifts up these models. We build bridges to a new economic reality. So when you hear that, how is that resonating with you?
Just really continuing to make the space for us to continue to grow, and really carving out space and carving out funding and carving out, a lane for us, because it's out there and it's available. Just really making what we do and our needs, trying to get our needs met through either this grant funding and different things that we do, so we can be sustainable and we can continue. And this can be around for another 14 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when I think about that statement, I think about the shift that has occurred within me, particularly as a result of the election. I felt a very profound shift within me. And that profound shift is what encouraged me to get deeper into the Ujamaa Collective. Like, I've been connected to Ujamaa, I think, since like 2018, but more as like a customer kind of person. And then eventually I kind of bumped it up a little bit and have my books in the bookstore. But in these recent developments, I came to the understanding that I need something new. I need something different, particularly as it relates to how I see my own personal economy. And so my personal economy started to take on a different sense, if you will. And Ujamaa allows me to be in that space for my personal economy to grow and evolve as the other women's personal economies are also growing and evolving. So when I look at it through that economic reality, that was very real for me.
Yeah, and I hear you saying that, like a little match is lit, and you're like, more creative juices, right? More creative juices, and what else can I do? And then you caught fire of okay, I can put my place and put my mind in this and really explore and expand because it's needed. It definitely is needed. So that's what I heard you say.
You wonder
It opens up to a mindset of abundance, doesn't it? I mean, that there is abundance, and we all have the ability to access that,
Yeah.
But not alone, right? But more as a collective together.
Yeah,
So
really
really,
setting us. Oh, sorry, Gail.
yeah, it's just
Really
like the
setting us
scarcity.
up.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say really setting us up, Anita, made me think of um, some of the workshops that we've had where we're scaling our business. And what does that look like? We're having grant writing workshops where we're able to scale our business. We're bringing in speakers who can help us with business taxes and can help us level ourselves up. And that's also part of carving out that lane that we're knowledgeable. Iron sharpens iron, and we're bringing those skill sets to what we need so we can be, just as marketable in the marketplace as any other organization and stand tall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I also think about this through that lens of surviving, moving from surviving to thriving, I think that's another space that Ujamaa operates very, very well in. And when you think about how in the larger society, this whole idea that you're supposed to be an individual, that it's all about individualism and, people pull themselves up by their bootstraps and, that whole conversation right there. But the truth of the matter is, what I'm discovering is that alignment of community engagement and cooperative economics reminds me that we were made, I think Gail said this earlier, we were made to thrive together.
That's right.
We were made to be in relationship with one another. So these aren't like fringe ideas. These are ideas that I think are moving us into a new paradigm where things like economic justice and democratic life reinforce each other rather than, this tug of war against each other. And then finally, when engagement is paired with ownership, and ownership is guided by values, we move beyond reform into regeneration as communities become unshakable. I feel like Ujamaa is moving in the direction of becoming unshakable.
I definitely agree with that, and we're empowering our membership. And like you said, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. We're just really following the steps of our ancestors. We're following the steps of our ancestors, with our collective power, with our, we said our movement, moving in that direction with really building up and preparing. A lot of it is, preparing our members, their skills, really giving them that space to be creative and flourish, and also to help them to step into that lane of entrepreneurship. It's beautiful. And we continue to move. We have a lot of work still to be done, and we'll talk a little bit about our fund. We have a lot of work still to be done, but we're moving in that direction, moving forward. We're getting somewhere, keep moving forward in the right direction as collective people.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're kind of moving towards that wind down part of our conversation, if you will. So what I'd like us to think about is, or talk about in our final reflection segment is the Ujamaa Collective campaign. So Lakeisha actually talked quite a bit about this, and I want to reiterate and repeat and reinforce everything that, of where we are with our capital campaign, because it ties in directly to what the long-term vision of Ujamaa actually is.
Right. What is the whole capital campaign about, Alana, from your perspective?
It's that the work needs a more, I would say, permanent home, right? So Ujamaa is launching a capital campaign to secure a dedicated space in Pittsburgh, and that, like you said, Anita, in the historic district of the Hill District, a space that's going to house all of our creativity, nourish and expand our cooperative entrepreneurship, and deepen the impact. So that's really what we're doing. The space we're really looking for is not necessarily a retail space. It's a healing space, educational space, a home for Black women and artisans, not to just sell our goods, but also, help us grow our vision, and to really give back to the community, just for our wellness, our arts, the education, all of that to be housed under one roof. So we're really speaking on that. We're already speaking that into existence. And just like everything else is grounded in community.
Absolutely. So right now we are in that phase of movement, because we're moving from the Center Avenue location into a different space altogether, right? But this different space is designed to be a stepping stone to where we will ultimately want to be as a result of our capital campaign. And so even with the move, right, we came together, broke the store down, packed things up, put books in this box, artifacts in this box, and all of that, all of these things that the artists have been making all of these years that are in the Ujamaa space, we came together as a body and really started packing up that space to move it into its temporary location. So as a matter of fact, as recent as yesterday, my husband and I were there. We brought the truck, loaded up the truck, took it up the street, dropped some stuff off. And then so the point I'm making is that even in the act or the process of physically packing stuff together, we are doing that in concert with one another.
Yeah. And taking those steps of faith, taking those steps of faith that, okay, this is not our final destination, but we need to take that step of faith that this no longer serves us. This space no longer serves us. And we're moving. And like you said, all of us gathered and, we were there and, really putting our hands to work and moving us. And, that really was transformational, is that we're all seeing us collectively come together, as women. And as, you said, there are men allowed. Yeah, the men come. Really, we need help with moving.
We need them.
We need the manpower. But, just really put in the work in, and that's part of the collective is coming together. And, I really believe that, with the capital campaign and everything, that the energy we're putting out, that is going to happen. And we will see, get to the future destination.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say one of the other things that I like about Ujamaa is, while we, sort of organizationally have these roles and titles and all of that, but we're not about position. We're not about role. We're not about title. We are literally about coming together as this community. And I would say that is the thing that over the years has kept me coming back. I got so many outfits in my closet, jewelry that came from Ujamaa, right? And so over the course of years, that has been like a sustaining force for me, right? Because I know if I need some African garb, I know exactly where to go. If I need some jewelry, I know exactly where to go. So even before I was a member, when I was just a customer, the vibe that I get now as a member is the same as a vibe that I got when I was a customer.
Yeah, I love that.
Amazing.
What that made me think of is that how we partner, we talk about practicing fair trade and how we partner with, we have a partnership with some in Tanzania, and just really the products you're going to get from different parts of, Africa, really how we really partner and very intentional about that. That's what made me think of it. And I know that needs to be heard, is that practicing fair trade. How is it? How is the labor, really understanding that. And, supporting other women, we do that, supporting other women in, different cultures, and really supporting them and bringing that back and making that a part of who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Gail, Mavis, any other comments?
Yeah,
Our time is winding down.
Yeah, I just want to share that, you know, as a trauma therapist, we focus a lot on the trauma, but it's really the resilience that we want to focus on and healing from that. And that's what this sounds like. And you have created an experience and based in values and beliefs that are ancient, right? And that are based in that I'm not better or less than you, but we all together can be as a collective, and we can support self and other. It's doesn't exclude anyone, and it's inclusive. And that's, they've done so many studies on trauma and what helps people move from just even thriving to surviving to thriving is that support, that connection, that base of I'm not alone here, and you're doing that. And so as a community, as a group of women, but also beyond that, you have reached you've gone beyond those boundaries and are creating that. That's
yeah. Thank you for that. A lot of our women, I talked about some of the other things that I do, being able to bring that and have a workshop on healing. We've had workshop on herbalism, having workshop on that.
Yes.
And then also as a part of healing, where we all are bringing our skill set and then pouring into each other and practicing and teaching that. Yeah. That's a huge part, as well as our collective healing.
Yeah, it's so
absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I just wanted to make one little observation that in the white community, and I'm guilty of this, we tend to have, instead of let's get together and figure this out and support each other, we tend to have balance sheets. Like, she took care of my dog. Now I got to take care of her dog. It's got to stay really. And I was speaking with a friend the other night that was so adamant about it that I thought the joy is gone from doing something for somebody if it's on a balance sheet. And, I know I'm guilty of it because I live alone and I don't want to ask for help. It's what society, that's not my fault, I'm sure. It's kind of what society seems to expect from us. Whereas if I were a part of a sisterhood like this, I think that there would even be more of my own creativity that would be discovered, because I'm pulling back in so many ways. I know Anita and Gail will back me up on that. But, the idea that it is not a balance sheet is about healing 360 is just so beautiful to even picture, right? To even picture that.
Excellent.
So, good job. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing job. Yeah.
Gail, did you have any final comments before we close?
Growing up with a mother that never wanted to have to be indebted to anybody, right? I felt like this alien growing up, right? And so I've always been much more opposite of that. And that you're just changing and reframing so many of the distorted belief systems that certainly that white people probably have dumped on you because you've always had that belief system intact, but you now are living it. You're actually creating it, and it's alive. And it's great. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll say, you mentioned Cairo, and that was really beautiful to hear. If we want Cairo and, my children not to inherit a world of peace, creativity and justice, and we have to build it now. Right. So they're not saying the same thing. They're not asking that same question, not just talk about it. We have to really build it together.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. So I'm going to read our closing quote for today. The education provided must therefore encourage the development in each citizen of three things: an inquiring mind, and the ability to learn from what others do, and to reject or adapt it to his own needs, and a basic confidence in his own position as a free and equal member of society who values others and is valued by them for what he does and not for what he obtains. And this is coming from Julius Nyerere, the Tanzanian author and teacher. And so when we talk about this idea of this stuff being rooted in our ancestry, when I read stuff like that, it resonates with me so clearly. And, and so I just get so excited. And I'm so glad you mentioned Cairo again, because all of this started with a Cairo question. And it's a question that my daughter had asked me when Cairo was about three or 4 months old. It was around the time of the murder of George Floyd. And the question that she asked me was, now Cairo is now 5 years old. And so now the question is morphing into, will 5-year-old Cairo have to fight in his lifetime for the birthright to freely and peacefully exist in the skin in which he was born? Is it possible to imagine a future free from the shackles of divisiveness and meaningless conversation? I believe the answer is absolutely yes. And we all have a role to play. And the role that we do through Ujamaa Collective is the kind of thing that will be of great benefit to Cairo as he grows and as he views and sees all of these people coming together and doing these positive things. So for those of you in the audience who are listening, you can join this conversation, and you can join this conversation on our private Facebook page. And it's under the podcast name Inflection Point Podcast. So I invite you to come and join in this conversation. Tell us what you think, what you feel when we talk about these things. And again, it's our private Facebook page, Inflection Point Podcast. So I want to thank our listeners for being here this evening and for supporting us and always kind of showing up and all of that. And I want to thank you, Alana, for coming and sharing your heart, your beauty, your presence, and all of that. And so to our audience, I say you can catch us the next time on Inflection Point Podcast. We are here every first and third Wednesday of the month at 3 p.m. Pacific time and 6 p.m. Eastern time. So I can't wait to see you in our next conversation. Thank you for listening to Inflection Point Podcast, where our mantra is cultivating change from the inside out. The journey towards anti-racism and social change doesn't stop here. Truth, reconciliation, and healing come from ongoing, open, honest, and deliberate conversations. Continue to dive in and deconstruct your thoughts, ideas, and beliefs as we band together to manifest social change. Tune in to Inflection Point Podcast every first and third Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, here on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more conversations about how we can cultivate change from the inside out.